My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is, if getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
Okay, go, buddy.
Hey, and welcome to Thursday evening in the land of KLRN. This is Disasters in the Making. I'm Brad Slager, your guide into the dark side of Hollywood, into the lesser offerings of our cultural peers in Hollywood. And joining me each and every fortnight on this dark venture into cinema is my partner from ScreenRant.com, Paul Young. Paul, how is the evening going?
What's going on, Brad? I am just sitting here enjoying some homemade hibachi that my daughter just handed to me. So you may be drinking some whiskey or bourbon, but I'm eating chicken.
All right, then. We're both equally wallowing in our vices. That's well done. Tell her I'm jealous. But
it's got some homemade shrimp sauce. You don't even know.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I'd almost feel bad about it if we didn't have such a great show in front of us. This is a pretty special episode for us, I got to say. We are delving into the very glorious franchise that is known as Tremors.
Oh.
This is a very long-standing franchise, and it's one I've found that a lot of people are both aware of and unaware of its length. Because there's numerous times I'll mention to people like, oh yeah, Tremors, that horror movie. Yeah, and I've mentioned like we're covering part 6 and that a part 7 is nearly on the way. And usually I get the response of, wait a second, there's been that many?
Yeah, and most people don't even know that there was a 12-episode TV series that ran for a short time too. Indeed
there was, yes. This is a very enduring intellectual property. But it's one that we have a fondness for. This is a very enjoyable B-grade, pure action, pure nonsense, and yet pure entertainment. I mean, there's just a lot to enjoy about this. And if you want to talk about enduring features in this series, Michael Gross, who plays Burt Gummer, is the solitary presence in all of these. He's been in every single episode. And
every single TV show.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And
it's a 30-year career. It's I don't know if you could even compare it to anybody else. I'm unaware of any other actor in Hollywood that has been in every single movie of a franchise and the entire run of its TV show.
Yeah, that's going to be hard to come up with something better. You know, there's probably, I don't know, there might be something James Bond related with certain timing or, I don't know, my mind was going to Brad Dourif with the Chucky movies, except for the fact that in the most recent one, he wasn't in it. It was Mark Hamill.
Wow.
But they're going to be doing a Chucky series on Sci-Fi, and they're bringing Dourif back for it. So that comes close, I suppose.
Yeah, but he doesn't have the same iconic presence that old Burt Gummer does.
Exactly. I mean, anytime they announce a new feature, a brand new title in the franchise of Tremors, the very first thing that does come to mind is, well, Burt Gummer's going to be in it, isn't he? And sure as hell he is. Well, the reason we're harping on him so much is it's a very special treat tonight. We are going to kick things off here by talking about Tremors 6. And the reason for that is because Tremors 7 is right on the horizon, coming out on Tuesday. It'll be on both rental disc and video on demand is Tremors 7 Shrieker Island. And is a very special add-on to this, Paul and I are going to be speaking with Michael Gross himself. Coming back in the second half of the show, we have Michael Gross speaking with us about this glorious franchise. So stick around for that. That's a can't-miss type of premise right there.
You know, Brad, I don't get too fanboyish about things. I've been doing this now for 11 years. The fanboys kind of syndrome has worn off, so now it's just neat to talk to certain people. I fanboyed out. I mean, oh my gosh. When they told me that Michael was willing to come on our show, our little tiny fledgling show, and speak to us about Burt and Tremors, I was like, I got goosebumps. I started hyperventilating. I had to go sit in a corner for a minute and calm myself. I was seriously trying. I'm fanboying hard.
Look at you. I'm right.
I know, so I'm telling you.
I mean, I took it just seriously myself, too. I mean, when, we finalized everything else, the first thing I thought, I was like, holy crap, I got to comb my hair. But then, we're going to do this on audio. We didn't have to shoot video. So, okay. Then I felt safer that way. But no, very flattered that you're coming on with us. So definitely stick around for that. So to kick off, though, this is a long-standing franchise. I mean, man, we're talking 30 years out. However, most recently, NBC Universal is the home division. It's 1440 is their pulpy DVD release side shot on this company. I mean, it's very little known. What they do with this is go into their archives and find any kind of property whatsoever that they can generate direct-to-DVD sequels out of. And you go through the catalog, you're going to come some shocking sequels. Like, wait, they did that movie? Hold on a second. That got a sequel? Like, for instance, Bulletproof 2. And everybody says, wait, the hell is Bulletproof? Bulletproof? What? Damon Wayans and Adam Sandler decades ago.
It's essentially, it's their AAA ball version of making movies, because they don't have to pump a lot of money into it, and in return they can get a lot of people, a lot of experience for very little money. And then, as those people start to move along, they can kind of weed out who they want to bring up to the big leagues, and they'll find a production assistant or somebody that was working in visual effects or animation, and be like, hey, you've done some really good work here. We would like to hire you to come do something different. And they'll move them up to a different stage. Heck, and 1440 is no slouch, man. They bring in like $4.2 billion. That's their revenue.
Yeah, this is pretty much it's I guess the term to use here would be formulaic. They don't really put out high grade stuff. It's not like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see that. You come across one of these titles, you're like, they made that? And I think really, like you said,
it's like Hallmark.
It's kind of like their minor league for their production side of things, because usually the talent in front of it is not so great. Like, for instance, in Bulletproof 2, like I said, this is Damon Wayans and Adam Sandler from decades ago. I think maybe even 25 years ago. They came up with the sequel with Faison Love and Kirk Fox. These are probably C-list performers. You've seen them probably in some places. Like Faison Love has been in a few movies with Jon Favreau and company. They're buddies. They came up in Hollywood together. Kirk Fox played the slimy waste management guy from Parks and Rec with the porn stash. And he has the porn stash in this one, too. So they're the stars. And this is how they contorted the plot in this film. I still crack up about this. Faison Love and Kirk Fox are the actual real-life police guys that Damon Wayans and Adam Sandler were based upon in the first Bulletproof, you see. That's how they contorted this entire plot to justify things. Like they have conversations, like Kirk Fox is a criminal, Faison Love is a cop, even though he weighs 300 plus pounds. Figured that out. And they actually have a conversation at one point in time. He's like, can you believe they made that movie about us and that guy played me? And it's like, wait, pump the brakes, hit the pause button. This is your justification for this movie? And yeah, it was a supreme step down. But this is what they do. They basically go through the files and they're like, hey, did we do a Bulletproof 2 yet? All right, let's do the green light it. And they go. And they probably shot this in South Africa for about $2 to $5 million. Pump it around the world. You sell a few rights off here and there. You probably turn a couple $1 million profit in the end of things. So,
yeah, absolutely. And same thing for Trimmer's Cold Day in Hell. Very, very modest budget. They didn't have to put a lot of time and effort into it. I think they filmed the whole thing in about 30 days, 30 to 45 days. I mean, it's a very quick turnaround. And it still made them fairly decent Blu-ray money.
Well, and it absolutely must have, because we have a 7th entry on the horizon. But yeah, the way that it works here, and they give you the feel of a sprawling set piece, because we begin basically in Antarctica, the rolling tundra. I think one of the Bush pilots even describes it. It's a place further than you want to go and a place you never want to be.
Yeah, and I'm going to give Trimmer's credit here. They do some very good on the last 3 films, 5, 6, and 7. They've done some good on location filming. The first 4 films didn't really do that. They stayed in the Nevada, Arizona, and California locations when shooting and filming. These people, they actually went to Africa, actually went, I think it was Iceland. And then for this last film, they actually went to Thailand and filmed on location. So, I mean, they're giving it their best effort. This is not, they're just trying to pretend they're in Thailand. They went there.
Yeah, and then, understand, too, you're talking about a location that generally doesn't take a lot of money. I mean, your exchange rate is in your favor. The local government is probably desperate to get some kind of commerce going on, paving the way for you. South Africa is a good filming location, too, because they're interested in generating their film market. So you can get funding there is generally the way it works. So for 1440, if they can get the investors down there, they'll take the production to South Africa because they got it bankrolled, and it makes sense for them financially to do so then. So generally what we're looking at here is they're putting the money in the right spot. Now in Cold Day in Hell, yeah, the opening scenes take place in the Arctic range and looks great. Granted, it's all white, but you got some hilly areas and you got some scientists digging into the ice fractures, trying to come up with core samples. And lo and behold, what happens? But they start feeling, dare I say it, tremors.
Yeah, rumble in the tundra. That's not right. Tremor in the tundra. Shaking them snow boots.
Cracking the ice. And they're not really sure what's going on until one of our favorite monsters, the subterranean monolithic sandworms called the graboids, arrive. In pretty impressive fashion, too. I mean, it was a digital effect, but I thought it looked pretty good, where you've got one of the researchers is off in the distance up on a hill, and the graboid just explodes out of the top of this thing, takes to the sky, takes her with it, and pretty good effect against the white backdrop, I thought. It kind of a gripping, draws you right into things. You're like, oh, damn, we're right out of the gate here. We're not taking any prisoners, are we? And then one by one, the other individuals either get carted off or survive as they try to recover some of their equipment and find a missing limb scattered amongst them as well. So, yeah, we're pretty much hitting probably 8 on the meter of 10 right off the bat.
I mean, it's a fairly strong opening. I would say it's not quite as strong as some of the other previous entries. It's top 3. The top 3 opening.
Yeah, I think it grabbed you. I think it took you in here. Now understand, the balance of the film takes place at a research station. And kind of in the vein of the series, too, where the characters get holed up in a location. They're basically pinned down by the creatures. So we do get a lot of interior shots, but invariably they do have to go out. They find reasons to put people out there in harm's way. And it's, one by one, we get our fair amount of people getting taken care of and rendered by the worms themselves. Also, the flying aspect of this. If you're not familiar, graboid biology pretty much dictates they have, what do you think, Paul, 3 different forms?
They do this. Yeah, they got a life cycle. Mm-hmm. So the worm is the full-grown, fledged version of the graboid. Then from there, they will gestate and produce 3 different shriekers. And those shriekers can multiply based on eating. So you can get tens of thousands of them suckers showing up, as you can see in Tremors 3, Back to Perfection, where Bert is in a 50 cal turret machine gun, and it's just night vision blasting these suckers as they come up because there's just so many of them. Then occasionally, if it eats too much, a shrieker will produce and throw up an egg. He'll produce an egg, and then that egg hatches into a worm, and the worm continues to grow. So it's just a big cycle for him, and it's all about eating, basically. Mm-hmm. I mean, truthfully, if they weren't killing people, I'd probably think they're my spirit animal.
Yeah, basically, it's almost the opposite effect of being hangry. It's kind of like they get more obnoxious and pissed off the more they eat. If that's a biological equivalent.
That sounds like a teenager.
I didn't order this. And then tear ass across the landscape. But what happens here is we get the researchers back at the station, realizing there's trouble. And in classic fashion, everybody seems to realize that, damn it, we got to get Burt Gummer on the scene.
Always need Burt Gummer. And this is a good time to point out that the people they send to go get Burt Gummer is Valerie McKee. And Valerie is actually the daughter of the two original cast members from the first film, Valentine, which was Kevin Bacon, and Rhonda. In the very first movie, they kind of fall in love and go away, and that's why they don't show up in any of the other films. They just let them right off into the sunset. So it was nice to see them not forget the roots of the film, of the franchise, and really tie that back in together to make that circle complete, so that it wasn't like just Burt in just an area with a graboid and then it tossed in a whole bunch of extra crap. I at least appreciated the attempt that writer who wrote this one?
This one was Brian Brightly, I believe, was involved with it. Or it might have been Welpy. There's another one. This is what I like about the series, though, and I think this is why it works so well, is that roughly in the first 4 Tremors movies, we saw a lot of the same names in the creative side of things. Ron Underwood is involved in the directing of many of them. S.S. Wilson, who wrote the first one, ended up directing, I believe, the next 3. Parts 2, 3, and 4. And Brent Maddock was another writer. He was involved throughout. And then once we get to part 5, it graduated over to Don Michael Paul as the director. He did direct 5, 6, and 7. And you had then Welpy and Brian Brightly involved in the writing aspect as well of those 3. So the first 4 are basically a mixture of the same team, and then the final 3 to this point is another mixture of a different team. At least there's a cohesiveness in the franchise. It's not just, all right, let's throw it to this guy and see what he wants to do. Let's try this one out. So you got that through line to a degree with the production side of things, and then through it all, you got Michael Gross in every single one. So he's allowed to retain Burt Gummer. And, even though he maybe isn't listed as the star in each one of them, he's kind of the centerpiece of each one of these.
Yeah, he is the glue that holds it all together, that keeps the franchise moving forward. He's a consistent plot point.
Yeah, and it's really well done because, you have to come up with something original for each movie. And generally, it means maybe a different setting or such, but you have different people involved. But then at some point in time, Burt Gummer has to get involved. And once he does, you're basically shifting through the gears and stuff. And by the time Burt shows up, you're in 4th, going to 5th, and you're hitting the throttle, and it's time to have fun. And it's, the way they do it that way too, I think they avoid a bit of formula. They don't get the same plot beat through every single episode. There is enough of a difference. They each have their own feel while adhering to the centerpiece of everything. So it's surprisingly workable.
Yeah, I think it is obviously a B film, and that's why we're talking about it. And it's got some major flaws in the way it handles characters and dialogue, specifically in these last 3 films. The dialogue is clunky, and it's not going to be misinterpreted as some sort of highbrow independent film that you're going to see on awards time or even blockbusters. But there's a level of professionalism that comes from the people making it. Not necessarily all the people in front of it, but the people that are behind it, pushing it forward, that somehow comes through and makes it a very enjoyable movie to watch. Not a good movie, an enjoyable movie. There's a difference.
Yeah, we're not looking to show up on award shows here. You know, it's not like Oscar bait that we're talking about here, but at the same time, you're going to have fun with these things. It's just going to happen. You can't help it for the most part.
I've been watching them with Erica for the past about month and a half, and we haven't started the TV show yet, but we're all the way up to number 5, and she loves it. She loves the whole series, and she loves Burt Gummer. And at one point, she asked me, she couldn't put her finger on why she liked this movie so much. And I said, it's something about the monsters. I said, it's because they're practical. They're all puppets. There's no CGI yet. I said, and everything about it is something that they're interacting with, right? It's not like we were talking earlier. It's not a person holding a stick with a green screen, you know, little icon for them to keep their eye levels proper. They can physically see and kind of move out of the way and interact with that stuff, and it makes a huge difference. And she said, yeah, I think that's it. But the fact that she loves these movies now as much as I do, like I was telling, I'm happy with it. I can't wait to start watching them again with Blake. And I can start watching with my son. I get to watch these things over again.
Yeah, and, you know, they do it right, too, because it's not like they beat us over the head with the worms. We don't, you know, it's not a constant thing. They do the Jaws thing. They do the Jurassic Park thing where they give it to you just enough. You know, they tease you with it. Then they show up and you're like, oh, cool. And then, you know, you get back into the chase scene. So many of the chase scenes involve a pile of dirt skimming along, or, you know, snow, or whatever the effect. Basically, it's a large thing dragged through. You get snippets throughout of direct views of these worms, and it's enough of a tease that it keeps you hooked until the end when they really do make an appearance, and it works. You know, you're caught up in it to a degree. You know, not that you're biting on a blanket while you're watching this kind of thing, but there's tension, there's fun, there's action. How the hell is this going to happen? You get your dose of gore. You get, you know, people die. You go through the whole panoply, I think, of action films, and it feels great, and it's fun doing it, and they don't take themselves too seriously. That's the whole thing. I mean, when you've got subterranean worms, you really can't do this with a straight face.
No, you can't. And, you know, when you're pole vaulting across giant rock outcroppings to avoid the monster, you kind of know what you're in for.
Yeah, but they managed to sell. One of my favorite effects from the very first movie was when there was a road crew working on something, and they were doing a jackhammer, and while the guy's punching through asphalt, all of a sudden, blood and viscous fluids just start bubbling up, and he's like, what in the hell? And he steps away, and the jackhammer stays upright, and then it starts vibrating, and then you see this thing shooting down the street, tearing up asphalt because it's stuck in the back of one of these sandworms that you don't see. But you're like, wow, this is pretty well done. This just, you know, ropes you right in. I'm on board. And,
oh, heck yeah.
You know, they managed to sustain this throughout the whole series. So even though we basically leave the tundra here for part 6, Cold Day in Hell, they're, you know, holed up at this facility where it's relatively, you know, clear dirt, not a lot of snow on site, even though they try to tell us it's cold, but, you know, they justify things with climate change. That's why the sandworms were able to migrate this far north. There's some governmental manipulation of the creatures involved, so you got that nefarious aspect to deal with. And
good old DARPA.
Yeah. DARPA's basically your darkest, evilest government entity. Mm-hmm. And they're the ones that strapped bombs to the heads of dolphins and taught them how to place those on the bottom of boats during the Vietnam War. That's how evil they are.
You know, and it's a good, it's a good villain, a good secondary villain for Burt, because he doesn't like the government at all. Thinks of conspiracy and paranoia is all around him. So it would make sense to bring DARPA into this particular storyline.
Yeah, Burt, you know, if people are unfamiliar, just to walk you through it, Burt is maybe the epitome of the term gun-toting. He has pretty much any and every piece of weaponry available, and then hanging outside of his general store out in the middle of the desert is a wind chime that's made out of shotgun shells that says, I need to shoot one more tax man before my wind chime is complete. Something to that effect. So it's, that sets it up. He's a rather intense, but also well-played and fun character. He's not just, dark and moody. He's, I'll say, comedically intense.
Yes, comedic intensity is great. And that's what makes him funny.
It is. I mean, he plays him straight. He basically delivers Burt Gummer as a very serious individual, but the fact is he's so serious that he becomes comical in the process. And it works out well because he plays against Jamie Kennedy here in Part 6, also in Part 5, but a long-lost son that he never knew he had. And there's a lot of animosity between them. They don't exactly get along, even though there is head up to the north to take care of the worms on behalf of the researchers. But yeah, Jamie Kennedy comes in with the comedy, and then Michael Gross plays it straight next to him. As a result, comedy ensues for both of them.
Yeah, well, and I guess we should mention that in the fifth film, it's revealed that Travis, Jamie Kennedy, is Bert's estranged son that he didn't know existed from a relationship that he had fostered at some point, 35, 40 years prior. So this would have been post-Reba.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? It can't be post-Reba. This would have had to have been pre-Reba. Because he's 40. He's 40 in the first film. He's 70 in the last film. And Jamie Kennedy's character is in his mid-30s in the fifth film.
Right, but does the release schedule adhere to the same calendar as the films themselves? That's the question.
It might not, because in number 7, he makes a statement that he hasn't seen a graboid in 20 years. That means that it would have been 20 years. It would have been a 20-year passage between number 6 and number 7. That feels like a long period of time. So maybe that's just, we're looking into that a little too much, but
that means the first 5 movies took place within a 10-year frame, and then a 20-year jump to the movie that came 2 years later. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Okay, well, instead of getting a migraine by looking at the clock like that, we are going to look at the clock and say we got to take a break. So we will step away for 2.5 minutes, go to the lobby, fill yourself up some more popcorn or Coke, free refills on us. And when we come back, show with us as we return. So do not leave.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage options make sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For JD Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hi, welcome to the Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take a...
Sports announcer at home?
Yeah, how'd you...
We just know.
My wife picks up the new Signature Wrap. It's got double the rotisserie-style chicken mixed with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and she takes the bite! Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my... Subway, make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub.
I'm little teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Are you running? Why? We have a star to speak to here.
Right, and welcome back to Disasters in the Making. And as we said earlier, very, very special episode tonight. We are definitely covering tremors, but we're doing more than that. We have pretty much what is the centerpiece of the entire Tremors franchise blessing us with his time today. We're actually talking to the star of the entire franchise, Michael Gross. Michael, thank you so much for coming on tonight with us.
Brad and Paul, it is my absolute pleasure. Good to talk to you.
We've honestly have been excited about this. I know what Paul last year, or 2 years ago, I think it was, spoke with you about part 6. And when part 7 was coming up, we both had stuck darts in our calendar for this to come out. And we've been talking for weeks to see if it'd be possible to talk to you. So for you to come on has been very happy for us.
Burt Gummer has been very good to me over the years, and I don't mind chatting about him at all. And it's always great. I mean, when you're in front of a camera, it's different than being on the live stage. I don't go to a lot of fan shows and autograph shows and things like that. So it's great to hear the enthusiasm of people who interview me, because I really think that in a lot of ways they stand in for the public itself. So it's great to hear the enthusiasm from people who want to talk about Tremors.
Yeah, and I actually spoke to you yesterday, Michael, for Screen Rant. And afterwards, I sent a text out to all my friends, and I said, you guys can be jealous because I just finished talking to Burt Gummer. And so for the rest of the night, my phone was blowing up from my buddies going, oh my gosh, did you really talk to her? I said, I got to Zoom with him. You don't even know. And they're all, so like you sort of made me mini famous just for at least for a couple of hours. And I appreciate that more than you know.
Well, it's absolutely my pleasure. If I can do that, if I can make you famous that easily, I'm on a roll here. Good.
My buddy from work that I was telling you about with the trains, he came in this morning and relieved me from work. He walks in, he goes, I just saw Michael Gross's house. And he was on the Caboose site that we chit-chatted about, and he watched you on Facebook last night and told me about it this morning when he came in.
Oh, great. Yeah. He saw some, as much as Burt Gummer loves weapons, I love trains and model riveting, both the real thing and the models. And so I gave a little we talked a little bit about some of my rail modeling last night, and I gave a tour of some of my Santa Fe Railway memorabilia. So I'm a bit of a train nut. Anything that runs on rails, I'm there.
The competition. Well, Mike, I got one of the questions I had was, I mean, you clearly have an affection for this character, for this franchise. What kind of reaction do you get from the rest of the acting community? Because this is a pure, B-movie action franchise.
From the there are a few people in the acting community who see it, but to be honest with you, there's so much out there that there are people to this day who are unfamiliar with it. There are a lot of great shows out there that I've never seen, because there are hundreds of possibilities, and the channels out there. When I began Family Ties, there were 3 channels. That was 1982. ABC, NBC, CBS. That was it. Fox wasn't even on at that point. Right. So, and they were the next guys, on the landscape. So, and the other thing is, I'm rarely recognized as Bert because a lot of times when I'm not Bert, the mustache is gone. My wife prefers it that way, and I don't have the full beard that Stephen Keaton had on Family Ties. So I pretty much blend in. People don't know who I am. Now, in the business itself, I don't know. It's one of so many choices, and I meet a few people now and again who make reference to it. But by and large, I think it's kind of off the radar for a lot of other actors.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear, actually.
Yeah.
It's almost to the point where you're iconic. I mean, whenever we hear an announced Tremors coming out, the first question, is Gross in it? Okay, cool. Then we're fine. So,
I have to say, Brad, I'm just fortunate that way in that I never saw Bert as the main character. He was in the first one, it was Val and Earl, the wonderful Fred Ward and Kevin, and everybody else were background creatures, except Bert was just so wonderfully eccentric. He was hard to miss, but everybody else over the years began dropping away. And so Michael Gross is as much as survivalist as is Bert Gummer, because I'm the last man standing, essentially. Yeah, I always saw Bert as operating best when surrounded by normal people. And so I've become sort of the center de facto because everybody else walked away. I would have loved, people say, why can't you bring them back? I said, because they don't want to come back. For whatever reason, they have their reasons. They decided not to. And I would have loved nothing more over these 7 years to have had the original cast back in perfection, doing what we did so well 30 years ago. That having been said, these have been some wonderful casts and some wonderful ensembles in these 7. So I'm not complaining about anybody else has been there. It's just for nostalgia's sake, it would have been wonderful to have everybody back together. And nobody wished it more than I.
When you played Mr. Keaton in Family Ties, you grabbed the title of America's Dad. And to a large degree, these are the 2 roles that you're remembered as. And when I talk to people, they either remember you as Bert Gummer or they remember you as America's Dad. And it's kind of interesting because, like, John Heder in this movie is at the exact age that he should be to be your actual son. He's the same age I am. He probably grew up on this film the same way I did. And so to come along on this ride with you for the last 30 years has been like watching, America's Dad bring us along for this journey. And it's a really interesting concept. We talked last night, and I told you about my daughter. She's 18 in college, and she's just now starting to find these films, and specifically this character. She already wants T-shirts with Bert for President on there, and she's all into it just as much as I am. And it really warms my heart. My son's 14, and I'm looking forward to reliving this again with him in a couple of years. Yeah,
that's a great age to start horror films, I think. 12, 13, 14.
You remember them.
They still buy it. They just they really go along for the ride.
For sure. I asked you this last time, but I'd love to get your thoughts on it again. Is how does it feel knowing that this character and franchise will live on well past this 30 years? Depending on whatever you decide to do after this, no matter what you do.
I don't think of it much unless people like you mention it, that this will live on. I think about it that in terms of watching Lucille Ball on old I Love Lucy things. And I rarely think that somebody might be watching me well after I'm gone. But that is a possibility. And I just hope we continue to bring them entertainment. I will say something I didn't tell you last night, when we spoke. And Paul, that's this, that I think one of the great ways Bert continues to be a great character, aside from his complete eccentricity, his comic obsessive compulsive disorder and paranoia, is that I think people recognize Bert has a good heart, that underneath all that toughness, that son of a bitch aspect of Bert, that gritty thing that surrounds him, there's a soft part of him, because every time he says, I want nothing to do with any of you, he can be drawn back into the fight because A, people are going to get it wrong if he's not there. And two, B, he wants to save lives. He doesn't want to see people hurt. He doesn't want to see others in danger. And so as much as he hates being brought out of retirement yet again and have to deal with a bunch of nincompoops and people who don't get it right, people who don't listen, people who are incompetent, he comes back and says, all right, I'm going to get into the fight one more time, because if I don't, you people are just going to get it wrong, and damn it, you're going to get hurt. And so I think there's a real heart at the center of Bert, which he I admit covers with an armadillo-like shell, and but I think that's part of the attraction. He keeps coming back because he doesn't. You'll see in Tremor 7, he has a real nemesis and a wonderful actor named Richard Brake. But at their final scene, he is there. He considers Brake at the top of the list of people who've gotten it wrong, who haven't listened, who are pig-headed and probably shouldn't be saved. But he goes to save Richard Brake. He doesn't want to see this man die. Even though he's made a complete mess of things, he's there to help. And I think that's why people still love Bert, probably with the reason I hate him. Because at the heart of all this hardness, there's a pretty soft heart.
That's a good point. Brad and I were talking before you got on about how this character has evolved over the last 30 years. And I compared Bert to Rambo, and in a way that in the last 2 or 3 Rambo films, the character of Rambo did not evolve. He flatlined, and it was just Rambo in a film. But with Bert in these films, Bert has grown as a character and has evolved. How much of that was important to you to make sure that each time Bert showed up on screen, we saw a little bit different Bert than we saw previously, but it was still familiar enough to know that we were watching Bert?
Well, this was a great collaboration between myself and the producers and the director, Don Michael Paul, in these last 3 films, because it was very different from the first 4. We were reinventing it in some ways, reinventing the genre and the franchise. It was very important to me, extremely important to me, that we saw Bert's inner life as well as his outer life. To me, I'll be honest with you, monster hunting can get a little old because it's one dimensional. And so I wanted him challenged emotionally in 5, 6, and 7, as well as challenged from the outside, to take him out of his emotional safe spot, if you will, the place of safety he had built himself in each place. First of all, being confronted by a young man coming up and saying, "Hi, Dad, you didn't know I existed, but here I am." That's a frightening thing. And if you look at Jamie Kennedy tells me that as we're both sitting in a vehicle together. And they said, how do you want to handle that information? I said, the first thing I want to do is jump out of that vehicle and walk away. And if you watch the film, you'll see that. I hightail it. I walk out and then I turn around and say, and then confront him. But I have to confront him from a distance. I don't want to hear that news. And so we, in the seventh one, we have a female who's confronting Bert and saying, you're doing it all wrong, mister. And so I want him challenged. I want him taken out of his place of safety, and frankly, dealing with the monsters within as well as the monsters without. So that's been important to me to have him challenged emotionally. So I've tried to insist on that in these films, and our producer Cher Stallings and Don Michael Paul, our director, have been marvelous in helping us take that ride together.
Still there, Brad? No, I think we lost Brad's microphone. He may have muted himself. No, so yeah, when if you had to look back over the course of 12 TV shows and 7 movies, and I know we're getting close to our wrap up time here, right. If we had to look to all of that, what would be one point that you would put your finger on and say, this is the reason why I've devoted so much time to this?
Well, I'm going to tell you, Paul, the first thing that comes to mind is not a specific show. I was on the stage for many years in a wonderful theater in Louisville, Kentucky called the Actors Theater of Louisville. I was there right out of drama school. And from there, I left the Actors Theater of Louisville to go to a marvelous theater in Minneapolis, Minnesota called the Guthrie Theater. And the Guthrie was founded by British Sir Tyrone Guthrie. And it was, I no sooner got to Minneapolis, Minnesota, that I received a piece of fan mail from Louisville, Kentucky, from somebody who did not sign their name and left no forwarding address, who said to me, you were the reason I did not take my own life.
Wow.
This is the most powerful piece of fan mail I ever got in my life. And this person, as I say, was anonymous. This person didn't want an answer from me. This person didn't want to be my new best friend. This person didn't leave a forwarding address or even a name. To this day, I don't know whether it was a male or a female, who said, I watched you for 3 years, and you're the reason. You gave me hope watching you on the stage, watching you play these many different characters for 3 years in the theater, and said, you're the reason I'm still alive, and I've never forgotten that person. Thank you, whoever you are, whoever you were. And I thought, well, I guess that's the reason I do this. I've saved one life.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
That's pretty strong. That's pretty strong right there.
So that was before the days of television and film for me. So that was the live theater. And I thought, well, if I've accomplished nothing else in my life, maybe that's it.
Convey that off a stage is pretty impressive. Hats off to you right there. But I just before we wrap up, I will say the way you played Bert actually I think came out really strong in the last few movies, because you were talking about a cast earlier. You're getting, it seems, almost bigger names in the recent films. You've had, Jamie Kennedy come on for you. Now you got John Heder, who are two, primarily comedic actors as they're known, and they play strong comedic roles. And I think you were offset pretty nicely with that, because you play Bert rather straight, but at the same time, it's exaggerated just enough that the comedic side comes through. It's kind of like a caricature without being a full-blown parody.
Well, I absolutely agree with you, Brad, because his comedy lies in the fact that he's so damn serious. His comedy is partly because he has no sense of humor, and everything's so serious. And comedy is about exaggeration, about excess, and so we try to take him as far as we can in the dark side of things to make him funny.
It works.
And I loved working with both Jamie and John. They were wonderful, and I'm constantly buoyed by these wonderful people who surround me. That's what keeps giving me new, recharging my batteries and juicing me as I step into the role of Bert again. It's the story, it's the words, and it's my colleagues, frankly.
Well, it definitely works. It makes the franchise continue. It makes us want to see it. So just to close out, Michael, thanks so much for coming on. Can't thank you enough.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your enthusiasm, and thank you for conveying that enthusiasm to both myself and the fans with your your mention of this. And so
definitely,
I sure appreciate it.
We're going to be definitely recommending this one, and it is coming out next Tuesday, both on DVD, Blu-ray. It's also on video on demand, I believe, correct?
That is correct. Netflix has the contract. Now, whether they are allowed to let it out on that day, the 20th, whether they do or not, I'm not sure. Whether they're on their own timing, but it will be Netflix. They'll be able to be seen there. Absolutely.
And Part 6 is on Netflix right now. So
yes, definitely, that's great. Yeah,
prep it properly for our show. You can watch first on Netflix, and then on Tuesday, the new one comes out. So, Michael, thanks once again. Can't thank you enough. We're flattered you came on with us.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure, and you guys stay safe and stay healthy, okay?
That is easily one of my favorite interviews that I've done in the last 5 years.
It was fun. I got to say, it was. I'm still, kind of floored that he was willing to lower himself to our standard and come on our show for that long.
For real, and truthfully, and we spoke about this afterwards. Is when I asked him what his single favorite moment was during the franchise, is what I was looking for. To have him feel, safe enough, I suppose, with us, or comfortable enough to tell us about something so personal and so moving as his answer that covers his entire span, it almost felt like an honor to hear him tell it to us.
Yeah, I'm not too used to evoking those kind of emotions from people. Normally I get something on the other end of the scale. Anger, resentment, blocking, stuff like that. But that was definitely a moment from him. Like, holy cow! It's like that happened.
Yeah, that was a very serious moment. Truthfully, I was glad we were there to hear him tell it, because I have never heard that story anywhere. I didn't know that about him. I don't think that out of all the interviews that he has done for this movie, did he tell that particular piece of information to anybody else?
It is a curiosity, but it's one I don't want to delve into too deeply. I'd rather just let it hang there, because that was pretty impressive to hear that coming out of him. I was like, wow, that was good.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm looking to talk about stupid sandworms, and here he is evoking a memory from his pre-television days. It's like, damn, that was solid, Mike. Thank you. But no, I'm beyond flattered he even came on with us, because, I mean, this, we just pulled somebody out of the specter that we involve ourselves in, and for someone to be that high up on the chain, as opposed to that was the gaffer over there for that slasher movie. I mean, this is a legitimate star we got to talk to. So
that's a very legitimate star. A star that spans almost 5 decades of a career.
Yeah, because, he mentioned being on Family Ties in 1982. I was like, wow, that's that far back. Okay. I was thinking late 80s on the show, but that's probably when it kicked off, didn't it? But
yeah, and then he's talking about that Louisville with saving the dude's life, and that's in the 70s.
Right. That's reaching back, but he graced us tonight. I got to say that, and the fact that he's still doing this, he's in his 70s and still doing action movies with sandworms, impresses the living hell out of me. Because this is a physical role. This is not just sitting back in a leather chair pontificating to the rest of the horde, go out and do what I tell you to do. It's not one of those roles. He's actually handling the guns. He's outside. He's running around as much as he can at his age. And he's in Thailand. He's out in the sun. And there's, the scene where they have to go and collect him. He's living on an island in
kind of Tom Hanks fashion. Did you get?
He
get
was
the Castaway vibe from that.
Yeah,
scene?
I actually did. I was going to ask him about the Castaway scene and to see if he grew his hair out like Hanks did for the film, but I never got around to doing it.
Well,
I can't imagine they did though.
When they started shooting that, he actually had teased out the image on social media. He's like, "Yep, we're getting ready for the next Tremors," and that was him in full beard, long hair, no shirt, and you're like, "What? How is this going to work?" Well, they made it work actually. So the way the new setting for the upcoming film is that basically there's a billionaire type who owns an island. Nobody else is allowed to go to it, and he has come into possession of his own sandworms, kind of evocative of the illegal procurement we may have hinted at in Jurassic Park. He got a hold of 4 of his own and let them loose on this island for hunting purposes. They wanted to be apex predators and find out where they are on the food chain kind of thing, without really realizing what they were dealing with. And on a nearby island, there's a group of researchers, including John Hader, who is less than a leader, let's say. We get introduced to him drunk in a hammock, for instance, resplendent in a Hawaiian shirt. So I love the guy instantly for this. And they come to find out that these sandworms are occupying this island beside theirs. They lose one of their crew members. And once they realize what they're dealing with, that's when the call goes out to find Burt Gummer. And they find him on the island in castaway fashion, convince him to come back, and then the shenanigans actually really start to ramp up.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lady in the film. She's blonde. Her name is Jasmine. They call it, goes by Jazz, and she's leading this group of researchers. And she tells John Hader's character to go find Burt, that he has excluded himself at Papua New Guinea, and that he needs to go get her. And then we find out that later she is Travis's mom.
Ooh.
So, yeah. Well, and it's another one of those things that Michael was talking about, where they add another layer to the character of Burt Gummer. Now he's got to open himself up to a woman and take her criticism. And because he's had a son with her that he didn't know about, it's just a different layer, and it adds complexity to this character that really, by all accounts, should just be two-dimensional. For this style film, it shouldn't have any complexity and depth, and yet they keep adding some of that to that character, making it more interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like he said too, that in pretty much almost every one of the episodes, there's that moment where Burt has to deal with people he doesn't like, he doesn't want to contend with, and yet has to because there's a greater problem to contend with. And it's pretty much why you love his character so much, because he's kind of like larger than life, but not over the top. And that's, I think, where it really works in this entire franchise. Like, Michael Gross never really lets go of the character. He's not chewing scenery to a degree that's distracting. It's just like, well, that's Burt Gummer, and you expect it, and he delivers it, and it's great. And I'm almost off balance speaking with him because he is, so calm and modulated and agreeable and personal. And he's like the polar opposite of his character. That's what's so hilarious, talking with him directly like that. I loved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely agree, 100%.
All right, well, we do have to wrap this show up, but I'm still kind of vibrating from this one. This was pretty exciting. We got to see the bad one. We've got a new one on the horizon. Paul and I have both gotten screeners and recommend Part 7, Shrieker Island. If you have any affection whatsoever for Tremors at all, definitely recommend going to find this one. You can rent it.
You can get it on VOD. And as you heard from Michael Gross, he just brings it. It's great. You're going to enjoy this as much as we did. I'm assured of it. So, in wrapping things up, Paul, where can everybody find you?
I am going to be at Screen Rant still. I'll be there for as long as they'll let me stick around. I did an interview with Gross yesterday. I'll have that written up on the Screen Rant site. So if you want to, he answered way different questions. It's a little longer interview. So if you want to see some more information about Bert and Tremor 7 and the future of the franchise, swing on over to Screen Rant on October 20th. That's when the interview will go up and be live.
Very excellent, very excellent. And myself, I'm across the map. I am at Town Hall. I'm at Red State. I'm at Twitchy. If you need me on a more frequent basis than that, head over to Twitter at Martini Shark. And you can also find me on this same network Tuesday evenings with our dearest friend, Aggie Rican, for Pod Divided, where we cover all the lighter side of our culture, from sports to some entertainment and a lot of cocktails. And next Thursday, I will be back at 8 p.m. with Ordy Packard on The Culture Shift. So we look forward to seeing you again, and we appreciate you being here tonight. Thanks so much, folks.